Hello everyone, my name is Shiv Mehra. I work here at Technical Marketing for Motorola Solutions. I'm going to be talking about a few features that we have been working on, which are going to be coming pretty much in the next release and maybe the release after that. These are some features that we have not just sat in a conference room and decided are fancy and nice, but these are lessons learned from the field, something that the field has told us, including you guys. So I think the first one I want to talk about is going to be, if you remember last time we introduced troubleshooting. How do you sit at your console at a data center and then connect to a remote site to get logs or to get packet captures? Something which is very valuable. You cannot do that by just sending someone out there with mirroring ports and stuff. It's just too expensive. And we introduced that, and one feedback that we got from all of you was it has to be in the UI. So again, just to refresh, you have a controller or any of our controllers sitting in the NOC. You are across a WAN link at a remote store or a site. You could sit there and push a command where you would say, I want all logs for wireless, for radius, everything for all clients, some clients, or I want to capture all DHCP packets across all access points on the GE1 interface. So that is a feature that we thought was really valuable, and you said it was great. You wanted the UI, so we are just going to go ahead and quickly show that to you. Duty here is just going to log into our switch. We do have a whole rack of equipment sitting out there, pretty noisy, but we decided to So what we've done is in the UI itself, once you have a out of domain defined, out of domain are basically sites. So every site, if you have 10 stores, you have 10 remote sites, there would be 10 separate out of domains. And we can capture packets or logs based on a certain out of domain. So as you can see here, on that default out of domain, Duty is going to load the packet capture. And once she loads that packet capture, that brings up something similar to what you would see in Wireshark. We have a bunch of filters here. You can basically start capturing packets on the Ethernet bridge, which means every single packet that comes into the RFS or your APs can be captured. You could see what packets got dropped. You could put what specific interface you want. You could capture packets on the 802.11 radio itself. So these are some things we spoke about last time, and Duty is just going to go and hit. No, you'll have to just do an F11 maybe. Can we not see that? No, don't reload the page. Okay, anyway, so you can basically hit start there. It starts taking the capture, and it's exactly the view that you would see in Wireshark for most part. You would see the packets roll by, and you would then see your details on every single packet. Now, once the packet capture stops, you have the option to save to disk, which means then you can load that into Wireshark right there. You can even filter right there. As you saw, there were a bunch of options to filter based on IP or based on MAC. Again, this is a feature that's coming in 5.6. We are today at 5.4 release, almost at the end of it, and 5.5 is due in the next month or so. So 5.6 is sometime end of the year to early next year. But this is again some feedback we got last time from you guys, and I think even a lot of our customers says that this is very, very important, very, very useful. One piece to even see here is you could even capture your logs. So all your wireless logs could be captured. Could you just do a full screen in F11? No? Okay, sorry guys, we're just having some trouble there, but we could show you some packets just scroll by right here in the details of the packets, just like how it would be on Wireshark. And again, if we have packet capture, and then we have the remote debug for wireless logs. So if you associate a phone with the wrong PSK value, we could see all of those PSK values scroll up here, telling us that there's a mismatch on your PSK itself. Anyway, so let's just move forward. I think we can show you this demo later on, just in the interest of time. Some major firewall enhancements coming in. Again, these are lessons learned from the field. This is not something we thought we want to differentiate, so we're going to put a feature in there, right? If I want to put firewall rules today, most of it is done using a permit action based on a source host address or a network address, right? And then you put your protocol and port numbers. This is a very traditional way of doing it. So there are some issues with this, and those issues are rules are based on specific hosts and networks only, right? Rules contain specific protocols and port numbers. So what happens is, if I have two sites, site 1 and site 2, again, this is a real world scenario that came from our customer. The way it works with our firewall rule is you create this rule set, and then you would push it out to every single access point profile, which means every single access point is going to be enforcing that firewall rule set. If that rule set is slightly different in terms of just the IP address, because site 1 could have a different IP addressing scheme than site 2, what would you do? You would have to create another separate rule set and push it out to that site. So if you have 1,000 sites, you're going to create 1,000 separate rules, and the only difference is going to be maybe the IP address or the network address, because every site may be a different network, right? So the challenge here is, this site has 2 segments, 10.0, 11.0, right? The wireless segment here is 11, the wired segment here is 10. Here is 21 and 20 because it's site 2. And if I had to create rules for this, I would have to create 2 separate rule sets based on how it's done today. So it's a huge scalability problem, because now you're just going to be adding multiple rules again, and again, even though the rule might be the same. For example, you want to block HTTP traffic across the board, but you want to only block it on certain networks and between certain devices. Because of this network issue that you would have to replicate that same rule multiple times. So what have we done? Instead of having 100 rules there, we have started using aliases. Now this is a feature that's coming in 5.5. Rather than specifying a IP address or a network address, you put an alias. In this case, I've said the alias is a $handheld, right? Just like a variable you would have in any sort of your scripting or programming languages. My destination is $backoffice PC. My protocol is $web. That's all we do in the firewall rule set. And now we push this out to every single access point out there, right? What does that mean now? That really means that when you go to site 1 and site 2, we have this concept of RF domains. So whenever I put 10 access points at site 1 becomes RF domain 1. If I put 10 access points in site 2, it becomes RF domain 2. And it's a configuration parameter that we have defined in the RFS or the NX controller. We can then go and do an override at these levels. So let's quickly have a look at what we have here. In the default firewall policy, the IP firewall, I've created a profile called WFD. If I double click on WFD, I've created my 2 rules. It says allow $handheld to destination backoffice server $web, and then I have it to allow. And then I've said deny IP any pretty much, right? Or not any, sorry, $handheld to $backoffice. Now if I go to my RF domain level, so if I click on RF domains, I have 2 sites in this scenario. I have WFD and WFD2. Let's click on any one of those. We go to network, and then we go to our network group alias, and here we define backoffice PC. If you could please double click on that. Backoffice PC or backoffice servers, I have 3 servers in my backoffice segment. I also have some more servers which are a continuous range. So we're giving you complete flexibility in how you can define what these IP addresses. So when a packet comes to the AP, the access point goes and check, is it destined for 20.11, 20.13, 20.15, 20.20 through 20.25. If it is, it will let it through. If not, it drops it. You also have the option to specify the entire subnet. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not blocking your view. No. Okay, can you hit exit, please? And I even define what my $handheld is. I've said all packets, all handhelds that are on this segment, that is what my handheld is. So whenever a packet comes from that particular IP address, we will then decide what to do with it. So your firewall rules now are very, very simplified. It's distributed, and you can very easily replicate this entire setup across your entire network. Rather than putting all these bunch of IP addresses in one single rule set somewhere else in your config, you localize it to that one site. The beauty is you can now change the firewall to be anything you want. So if I exit out of there and I go to network services and I click on web, I can even decide what applications are permitted at that site. So when I go to site 1, I can say allow port 80 and allow port 22 and 23. So I'm allowing all my HTTP traffic, my SSH telnet traffic. I could go to a separate site and say $web equals to FTP only, for example. So you have that flexibility to go and change what you want. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Does it have to be $sign, or are you just using that as an example because it's a familiar placeholder for programmers?
It is actually a $sign, believe it or not. Okay. You have to put $ and then anything you want, any variable name. So it is kind of signifies an alias. And the reason we do that is in our config, everything goes by name, right? So if you have a name in there, you can edit that name. Say you create an RF domain called WFD, and that's what, the reason you see that WFD and WFD2 is because I was just lazy. I didn't go and do WFD1. If I had to do that, I have to delete WFD and then put WFD1 because everything goes by name and you cannot change it. So when we want to put these aliases, we really want them to be different from names. So we use the $. So it has to be $, yes.
Can you use variables in the aliases? Like if I know all of my stores, the POS server is x.3. Can I use 192.168.x.3 to represent all of my POS servers and all of my stores?
No, not in this design as of now. I can cross-check that for you though. I'm not 100% sure.
What if I forget to populate those variables in the second, like WFD2?
Then it
How
ignores.
Does it behave? It just
then
treats it as an any in blocks? Or
yes,
what?
it's then an ignore, complete ignore. Okay, so our entire goal was you basically go and replace your variables or these aliases with an IP address. And this was, again, a very useful use case that came from a customer because they had different segments. They had a cookie cutter deployment with what they wanted at every site, but the network segments were different. And now we started creating these multiple rule policies, and if you have 1,000, 2,000 sites, you can't even scale that much with what limitations we have on creating policies and profiles. It doesn't make sense to create 1,000 policies, right, for this kind of stuff. So now you create one single policy and you then go and override that value. Yes.
So in your example, you said you had a customer with 1,000 sites and they want to do this 1,000 times. So they going into all 1,000 sites and they're adding the particular attributes to those RF domains?
Yes.
So they go into each one and say, and as soon as they add that value to that RF domain, then it applies the firewall policy.
Right. The firewall policy, it has to be mapped. So the thing with the firewall policy, it can be mapped anywhere. It can be mapped to a GE port. It can be mapped to a WLAN. It can be mapped inbound, outbound. So putting these aliases mean nothing. You still have to map that policy wherever you want it to go. So for example, if I wanted on the wireless LAN, I would actually create the policy. I would create my AP profile or AP group, if you will. I would go in there, choose my wireless LAN, and say I want this firewall policy to be mapped on the inbound direction. And that's when this starts to take effect. Otherwise, this means nothing unless that policy is not mapped.
So I guess my question is, if I went in and I mapped, let's say I wrote a policy that I applied to every access point,
Yes.
and those variables weren't defined, it would do nothing?
It would do nothing at that point.
But as I go through each site and I put the variables in for those particular RF domains, then
Yes.
it would then start functioning at each site as they go through.
Exactly. Okay, so this was that second small feature. This is again something we're working. This is going to be out in 5.5. It's really redefined how we do our firewalling. It's made things much more simpler. The config is much more smaller compared to what it used to be as one big chunk of rules that you would do a show running config. This is all at the RF domain level. Because when you do a show running config, and I'm going back to the CLI just because that's where most people try and figure out what's happening. The RF domain stuff comes all the way at the bottom. Most of your config is right at the top, and you want to try and make sure it's simple so that you can see through it, figure out what's an error, what was misconfigured, and fix it, rather than having 100 rules show up right on top, because that's what happens with an IP access list. It shows up right on top as soon as you do show running config. Any questions? Is this something that has value?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Okay. The next application I'm going to talk about is content caching, right? So this is an application we did mostly for retail. The use case is retailers have a lot of these kiosks where they play constantly some sort of videos. They have a lot of ads out there that they would like to play, and they still want this centralized control, right? They want this content to be coming somewhere from the from the NOC, because it doesn't make sense to push out all these videos at every remote site, right? At every store. So what we came up with is with one of our infrastructure devices called the NX series. We have a content caching engine built into that device. Now this device is designed, it's kind of a controller, right? But it can even host VMs and stuff. But it's designed to sit at the store, right? It's a branch office router, if you will. And this content caching engine can basically cache videos, static web content that are like 12 or 15 different types of things we can cache. So the problem initially was that customers are trying to pull these videos on their kiosk or try to give ads on their guest access to customers where they were sharing the same bandwidth and pulling that video 100 times, the exact same video. So it was a big drain on that bandwidth, and it didn't make really good sense. And I do have a a demo here, and maybe Dwati can, if you guys want, you can try this out. If you just go to YouTube, we have already cached this video here, and I think we've cached it at all those values in quality, and you can play it, and you would see that if you connect to the cached wireless LAN, there are two wireless LANs beaconing here, cached and non-cached. If you connect to the cached wireless LAN, your video should load much faster compared to the non-cached version. And that's, we've got some iPads, as I said, we could definitely pass it on. But the goal here is to try and make sure that, oops, did I go backwards? Is to try and make sure that when the video is first loaded, the caching starts. The NX controller starts to cache that content, so you're actually pulling it over your internet bandwidth. But once it's cached, you can then start streaming that locally from the caching engine that's on the device itself. And there's obviously a lot of analytics built around it. How many people try to hit this particular video? And this could be for anything, right? We're doing it for YouTube, we're doing it for Hulu, we're doing it for some other, I mean, here is a bunch of things that we do it for. So these are certain things that you can really start caching. So if there's a viral video going on and there are people in the store trying to watch that video, that would be cached. If it is content provided by the retailer itself, like ads or those kiosks that have things constantly running, they don't have to worry about distributing that content locally just to save their WAN bandwidth. You play it once and it gets cached in there. And again, that's a demo, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to skip that piece, but we can always get back to that, and I can pass around these iPads. And all we do is, in the config is, we just say what VLAN is cached. So I say VLAN 70 is a cached VLAN, and I map a wireless LAN to VLAN 70, and I'm done. That's it. So there's a whole full-blown proxy running in there.
And
with that, can you run your wired network through there?
Yes, your wired network. It's a VLAN thing, so it doesn't matter whether you're wireless or wired, technically. Yes.
How? So it becomes a gateway for your VLANs?
Yes.
Completely?
Yes.
It's a full transparent proxy.
Exactly. Okay. And those options are all there. You configure your transparent proxy in certain ways. Yes. Okay. The final piece that I'm going to talk about is analytics. I don't have any slideware on that, so we're just going to go directly in here. But we're doing a bunch of analytics, right? I think that's a big thing is with all this data coming in, what can you do? So it was first only designed around captive portal, right? A user comes in, you're doing show roaming, where you walk into a store, Best Buy, you see a TV, the next thing you do is you connect to your, well, over 3G or Wi-Fi if possible. If you connect over the Wi-Fi and you say, I'm going to Amazon.com to check that price, we can actually gather that information and then store that somewhere so that the retailer can actually go and check, oh, someone went to Amazon.com. And again, Eric will speak a bit more in detail how we can detect this stuff, and we can actually start sending coupons. So you can actually send a coupon to this person standing right in the store. Hey, you know what? We'll give you free delivery and we'll match Amazon's price, right? In a certain way.
And how configurable is that caching mechanism, right?
This one?
Yeah, from a stale data, from a size of
right.
How much stuff can you cache? Where does it live?
Right. So it lives on the box itself, and you can define how much of storage you want to give. Anywhere from 2 GB to 32 GB is what we partitioned for that. So you can have 32 gigs of data. You can decide what content to just delete. So when you do a show active users, and I'm just going with the show command, just it makes sense, but you could do that in the UI as well, where you can say, I don't want this content anymore, right? And that URL would be there, the entire URL where people are going to. We can do active users, we can see active links, we can see what is already stored, and you can make sure that you delete that if need be.
Max size is 32 gigs?
I think so, yes. It's a partition that we have. Okay, so analytics was around smarter was more around the captive portal, where what are the top URLs people went to, and what were they doing, what kind of devices showed up in a network. What we've even added now is a full-blown analytics engine, which has for captive portal traffic, RF client, SmartRF, and all those details. So in this simple example, you could just highlight what top URLs people are going to, start clicking on them and seeing what is going on in your network at any given point of time. And obviously this is history, so you could then go back in time, 6 months or 3 days or 4 days, however you want it. Now this engine obviously sits on our NOC appliance, the one that sits in the data center, right? It's got terabytes of storage, and it can keep all that information. And the way we gather this information is because these access points are designed to run Wing 5, which means it runs a full-blown code. They have the ability to strip a lot of information from your HTTP packets going back. and they only send a subset of that information all the way back to the NOC. Now, they could be directly talking to the NOC appliance if it's a standalone site with APs only, or it could be talking through a wireless LAN controller. Right, so as you can see, there are a bunch of stats that we can go into, and if you go to traffic, you could actually see cumulatively what's going around within your network, right? What is your overall throughput? Who are the top 10 talkers? You know, what kind of signal strengths are you seeing? What kind of client counts are you seeing? What kind of devices are you seeing? If you go on SmartRF is our dynamic RF management algorithm, and here you could see like power changes by these APs. So you can really see what's happening on a daily basis, on a minute by minute basis, or over an average of a month. How many times is the power changing? Is something wrong in my network? Do I need to send a tech out there and do a site survey? Do I need to, these shells just came up, so maybe that's causing a lot of issues. Do I need to rearrange my APs? So there's a lot of this stuff that is now getting built into our 9500 data center controller. And it's truly designed to make sure that you can get most of your stuff from this one single unit. As Sriram was mentioning, this is where you would run all your virtual machines for your secure access. This is where you would run the air defense security platform. We also have voice products that would be virtual machines that could run in here. So this is completely designed from that perspective. And then we take a step down from here and go to the NX6500 series controllers, which is where the content caching resides. That is designed for the branch router, where you can again run your VMs as Windows or Linux, anything that can be virtualized in a store. A pricing server is a very classic example. So we're trying to build this whole ecosystem where it doesn't matter what device you have. The behavior is going to be the same. It's just a matter of these certain features like analytics, whether they would be in the NOC or should they be locally at the NX controller. So this is just a quick overview of what we have, and you can again dig down more deeper. This is actually our alpha network. We eat our own dog food, obviously, so we are running the latest 5.5, which is due to be released soon. We are in CA107, which is Motorola's code for this building. And we have 2 floors here. So within this floor, we have a bunch of APs. And on a daily basis, we know what's happening. We try and troubleshoot literally using this 5.5 to see how we can improve the network. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? Oh, everyone is staring at the screen. I'm guessing it's really nice and colorful.
Well, I was trying to understand the output of that whole AP's change in channel chart because I couldn't see like the
right. We can go back there.
I could see the X, but I couldn't see the Y.
Right. So this is SmartRF. In SmartRF, what happens is if you have a very highly mobile environment.
Oh, there's AP names down at the bottom. Each one's a different AP.
Yes. Each one is going. No, this is for one AP. This is the power change on the number of changes per day or per hour, depending on what we choose for a. Is this for the, where did you click, I think, is this, no, just go back here. Can you click on one AP? Here, just click there.
Doesn't look happy.
Okay, so this is at the RF domain level. For that one site,
okay,
how many power changes did I have in a particular period of time? That is what it is. Okay. So if we go back to floor 1, which is going to be our CA107, is that our RF domain name, I'm guessing? Yeah.
So this seems like an NMS function, and you're saying that it's not built into Wing 5, it's built in, you have to have an NX series controller?
Right, and the reason for that is because NX series has a full-blown hard drive and a database, right? The controllers and the access points do not have that kind of data, so we cannot store things which are really far-fetched. So on the APs, for example, you can see last 30 minutes, average of last 30 minutes, a minute, and an hour. That's the most we can do. But building analytics based on what's happened the last few days, we don't have the hard drive capacity, obviously, running on an RFS controller, which is designed to just be a packet switching device or an access point for that matter. So this is the only feature. This is more of a service that sits right on top. It makes sense to have it at the NOC rather than having it at the edge. But you have full visibility because if I had multiple sites over here under the CA107, multiple RF domains, you would see that tree here. If there were 100 types of sites with different types of RF domains, you would see everything in here. And the only reason we have this NX controller is because we are talking about pulling hundreds and hundreds of data points at any given point of time. This controller is capable of managing 10,000 devices. So it can adopt another controller, which could be sitting somewhere else in a remote site, or it could only adopt APs. Either way, it doesn't matter. But it will configure and manage everything from here, and this is where you can get pull reports and stuff like that, which is going to be obviously coming in 5.5 and beyond.
How does that differ from the old air defense platform that you used to use?
Sorry?
How different is this from the old air defense platform you used to use? Was there a common code that's moved forward to this?
Okay, great question actually. So the question is, how is this different from the air defense platform? So the air defense platform was very different. It was we had two separate programs, if you will, and products, if you will. What we're doing is we're getting tight integration. So if you go to the AP really quick, and then you do a right click and you do a right click. Oh no, maybe not here. It has to be. Just try and go a bit here. Just pull this over. Yeah, click here. Okay. I think this build doesn't have it, but there is something called a spectrum analysis. What we're doing is we're taking features that existed inside air defense and moving it into the Wing UI, right? And we're going to be leveraging a lot of air defense. Going forward, air defense is going to start running as a part of as part of this platform with a single sign-on. So certain things, certain modules, you'll still have to buy licenses, but they will be reachable directly from the Wing UI. So the classic example would be spectrum analysis. Spectrum analysis is a feature that is only built into air defense as of today. With this little arrow here, you could just drop down and you would get spectrum analysis. You would click on it. It would automatically load the air defense module. Now, air defense still has to be running in the background as of today because we're trying to bridge that gap and trying to bring everything under one single hood. So going forward, in the next year or so, you're going to probably just see only Wing sitting up there, and everything is basically integrated into Wing. Air defense is completely going to be part of Wing. It's not going to be a separate module per se. You might just have to buy a license. But
okay, so you're really just rewriting Wing to have those features that used to be in there and moving them across one at a time.
Exactly. We're trying to make it very seamless as possible. And again, Eric is the expert on air defense, and he can definitely give you more information because I think last time you guys requested some more information on air defense. He especially came down from Atlanta. So thank you for that. But he's going to give you more information on air defense.
So you only get spectrum analysis as an add-in module that you purchase?
As of today, yes.
Just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yes. Right? Okay, guys, any more questions?
The interface, is that Flash?
It is Flash, yes.
Is there a mobile version?
Not yet, but we are working on. We have some apps that we did. So there is obviously a lot of things going on, but we are looking at some more enhancements on what you can do with your phone. But yes.
Are you looking at ditching Flash anytime soon?
I don't know. We'll have to defer that question to product management.